I'm doing what everyone else is doing. In the lead up to Daredevil Born Again, which is coming out very soon, I have decided to rewatch the entirety of Daredevil, on the original. So here we go. It's been forever since I've seen the Daredevil show. I watched it as it came out initially, and I haven't seen it since. So I have actually genuinely forgotten most of it. This was around the time when Daredevil was coming out. I wasn't as big into more like darker, gritty stories than I am now. Now I can find a way to enjoy and appreciate more darker stories and lighthearted stories at the same time. But back then I wasn't a huge fan of like super dark stories, so that's why I don't think Daredevil was like, I didn't really like it so much just based on that initially. But thankfully, I'm more mature in how I appreciate media. Thank God. So here it is, Daredevil Season 1. 13 episodes. This is, without, saying anything right away, fantastic. This is a fantastic piece of television. This season is great. Pretty much, if there was never another season of Daredevil, this was the only season we got, there was no season 2, no nothing, this would be, I think, considered to be like a perfect piece of television. Like, this is a phenomenal superhero like project. It's fantastic. So let's kick it off. Let's start with some characters, and then from there we go on. So Matt Murdock himself, Daredevil. A bit of a pet peeve of mine now, because of how I am, is, and this is like a nitpick, right? Like, nittiest of nitpicks, he's not a redhead. That's it, Like, other than that, I think they nailed him. And him not being redhead is my comic book pureness, right? Because I'm a purist. I want everything to be like, if you're adapting something from the source material, it must be the source material. And if you're going to make a change, it better be a change for the better. And him not being a redhead is a bit more of like a pet peeve. Like, I wish he was redhead. But, it literally is a pet peeve because Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. Oh my God. You want to talk about perfect casting, right? Like, his casting as Daredevil is like, you were born for this. It's along there with J. Jonah, with J.K. Simmons, or Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, or Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. Like, made for this. You were made for this role. That's Charlie Cox with Matt Murdock Daredevil. He is fantastic. His origin, I like how it's not just straight up told like chronologically. We find bits and pieces of it throughout the episodes as we go along. We get the start with, he gets the chemicals in his eyes and loses his vision. And then we get like bits and pieces of him with his dad throughout the first couple episodes to kind of establish his origin, which I like. Not telling it all at once. Which is something like, like a movie probably would do, right? I love the fact that he's just Daredevil at the start, right? Like we don't see him make the decision, now I'm going to be Daredevil. He's just already Daredevil. I mean, obviously he's not called Daredevil. He's Man in the Mask, Devil of Hell's Kitchen, whatever, right? He's not officially called Daredevil till the very end of the show. But I appreciate that they, again, are just like, we're still in early days for him, but we don't get to see him like become the vigilante right away. He's already doing it, right? Like, that's something I also appreciated about The Batman, was that yes, we're in the early stages of Batman's career, but we don't need to see him become Batman. We kind of know that to death already. So it's just, yeah, he's already active, like I like that. I also very much like his suit that he wears for most of the season. It's just like, like a compression shirt, black pants, boots, right? And he has the mask that he just hides over his head because he doesn't need to see. I like it. For like, it's the basic starter set, and then, he gets the full gear at the end, right? I like it. I want to talk about his relationship with his father. Matt Murdock's relationship with his dad is really nice. I really like how they didn't go for the whole abusive angle, which so many things do. Now, of course, obviously, this is source material wise as well, right? But I like his relationship with his dad in the show is great. Again, in many cases like this, especially stuff now, the dad would have been an abusive asshole who drinks himself to death, makes fun of his kid's disability, all this stuff. But no, his dad wants Matt to overcome the blindness and wants him to continue to be a better person than he is. The dad does not want Matt to become him, right? He wants better for Matt Murdock. And I like how the dad, like, there's little scenes where the dad's like he sees Matt studying Braille and he kind of like jokes with him about it. He's like, "So what's this? Oh, that's a T. Why doesn't he just make it look like a T? I don't know." You know, like, I like stuff like that, right? And of course, there is his dad's death, which I think is... It's sad, obviously, his dad has to die. But it's a great character moment for the dad that, you know, the dad's going to get a big payday if he throws this fight, but Matt wants to see his dad win one, right? Matt's like, "I want to see you win a match." So the dad, knowing that he's going to die by winning this fight, still does it anyway because he wants his son to see him win. And he wants to hear the crowd cheer for him just once. And it's such a sad scene. It's such like a, "You did it, buddy," and then he dies. And it sucks. But I like the relationship with the father-son relationship. It's not the ideal one that we would want. Like, you know, Matt having to patch his dad up with, like, you know, stitches and giving his dad alcohol to, you know, take some of the pain away. And then his dad telling him to drink some alcohol so Matt doesn't, you know, doesn't shake his hands when he's patching him up. You know, it's not the ideal relationship, but I do like that there is still, like, the dad is still caring for him. You know, I like that. Speaking of relationships and caring, Foggy. Oh man, when I get to talking about Foggy, it's gonna be great. But I love the friendship between the two. Like, right off the bat, these two are just incredible together. Like, they're like the best of friends, and you feel like they're very good friends here with the way they joke with each other, they talk to each other, the way they act around each other. It's phenomenal, and I love it. I don't want to get too deep into Foggy right now because I want to talk about him on his own. But just the relationship between two is great, and it goes through like the ups and the downs in the show, like especially when Foggy finds out he is Daredevil, how the strain that puts on the relationship. But their relationship, their friendship, it's too strong to be broken, man, and they bounce right back. Maybe they're not exactly where they were when the show started, but they're in a good place by the end of it. They're in a comfortable place at the end of it. Styx, Matt's relationship with Styx. Styx is the one who taught Matt pretty much how to use his enhanced senses, right? Like how to use his hearing, his smelling, you know, basically made Matt the ninja he is. And I think they did a good job of showing Styx, like, you know, like the wise old man who teaches the young boy how to, you know, overcome his disability, but still make him the asshole, because he is an asshole. He's very much an asshole. They show you that. Styx is an asshole. You know, like when Matt makes him the bracelet out of the ice cream wrapper from the first day they met, and Styx crushes it in front of him. Like, oh, you asshole. But then you find out that Styx does care. You know, it's the whole, he's the hardened, tough exterior asshole who you think doesn't care, think doesn't have a soul, but in deep down inside does care. Right? That is Styx. And can't wait to explore that in later seasons. And then we have Matt's faith, what I want to talk about. This show, again, it's very shocking that it seems like Born Again is going to lean into this, but Matt Murdock's Catholic faith. You don't see that a lot, you know? In shows where they actually lean into, like, the character has a religion and they lean into it. Well, if they do now, it's, you know, a completely different religion other than Christian or Catholic is seen as, like, the devil nowadays. So it's nice to see them actually, you know, he goes and talks to a priest every now and then when he needs to make a decision that he doesn't know how to do. So he goes and confronts a priest and asks him. Like, I love the opening scene where he's confessing to the father and asking him, I don't seek penance for what I've done. I'm seeking forgiveness for what I'm about to do. That is awesome. That's a hard-ass line, baby. And then you know, like throughout the show, he asks the father, like, you know, when he has dilemma with Wilson Fisk, he starts asking, like, do you believe the devil exists? Or he tells the father, like, you know, do you believe God put us on earth for a reason? And the father does, yes. And then Matt says, then why'd he put the devil in me? Like, these lines are so good. And, like, the reassuring talks that he gets from this father that, like, they either strengthen his resolve or make him question what he's doing. I very much appreciate those, you know? Moving on from Matt Murdock, who is a fantastic character, we have what is a hero without his villain? Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Fan-freaking-tastic. Love him, love him, love him. This is how Kingpin should be. After seeing him be brutally destroyed in the MCU with Hawkeye and Echo, like, oh my god, he's a threat again. Jeez, it's so good to see him be a threat and someone you're like, I am scared to be near you. They do a good job the first couple episodes. He's like the looming threat. Like in the first episode when like all the members of the crime unit, the crime organization meet, and there's the one person who's not there, and it's like, you know who it is, and you're just like, yeah, they do a good job of making him like a looming presence, and then when he shows up, he just has like that gravitas, that aura around him, that it's like, you don't want to mess with this guy. Like every time he's talking to someone, I genuinely think, oh, he's gonna snap mentally and snap the person next to him, you know? Like he's that type of character. You walk on eggshells around this guy. They did a great job with his origin, establishing how he came to be in this version of the show. His dad was an abusive asshole, as per usual, and his dad, he had enough, right? He couldn't take it anymore, and his dad was beating his mother, and that's when Wilson Fisk said, no more. He took a hammer and beat his dad to death. You know what? And I was saying this throughout the whole show, especially when, you know, like, the Nelson Murdock team figure out what Wilson Fisk did. You know, he killed his father when he was 12. You know, he was beating his mother and saving his mother. I'd freaking do the same, man. You know, like, I don't feel any sort of, like, he was protecting his mother from being abused by a douchebag. So, you know what? He gets a pass on that one. What really shocked me was when the mother, you know, is comforting him after and then goes, get the saw. And they cut his father into pieces, and every day for the next week, they threw another piece into the river and made it just seem like, oh, his dad got hit by loan sharks, you know? Like, oh my god, dude. That's a good origin. And I especially love that before he overcomes that, you know, and it's haunting him, and we get that episode, we get his origin. When he looks at himself in the mirror, he doesn't see himself. He sees the boy with blood on him who killed his father. That's great. Also, shouts out, by the way, that the actor playing Kingpin, like the young Kingpin, that's the guy from Crash and Bernstein. Bernstein from Crash and Bernstein. Who remembers Crash and Bernstein? I used to watch that show. That's crazy. But how does he overcome his whole tragic backstory? Vanessa. Vanessa. This might be my favorite version of Vanessa. You know, like compared to the comic version, I think I might prefer this one over, because this one absolutely endorses his criminal behavior, and I'm all for that. I love it when there is like a mob boss, and obviously he's got like a romantic partner, and usually they try to make it where, like, you know, the romantic partner, the girlfriend, she's trying to stop him from doing these bad things. You don't have to do this. You can do this the good, clean way, and tries to talk him out of the life of crime. But Vanessa just doesn't. She endorses it all, and she even becomes part of the life of crime. You know, I love that. I love to see that in shows where the wife is just like, yeah, you're a criminal. It's hot. I'm going to join you in that. That's cool. I like that. You know, like, especially when it gets to the point when Vanessa gets targeted, and instead of being like, you know, you did this to me, this is because of you, I can't be seen with you, Vanessa's like, make them pay for what they did to us. Like, her resolve is there for him. I love that, man. I love that. So yeah, compare that to the version in the comics who actively does not like her husband's criminal behavior. I like this one more. I really do. I really do. And I'm hopeful in the future that, who knows, maybe we get a Richard Fisk eventually. Never know. Then we have his, like I said, his full descent into villainy is in this season. While he does bad things, and he, like, says it, like, you know, he doesn't want to kill people and all that type of stuff, it's like he eventually comes to the realization by the end of the show, like, you know, he thinks he's the savior, right? He thinks I have to burn down Hell's Kitchen and all this to build it back up to make it a better place, right? Like, I have to, you know, agree. It's like the Thanos thing. A genocide's gotta happen, and a big disaster's gotta happen before we can rebuild from the ground up to make that utopia. At the end of the show, he realizes he is not the savior. He is the destroyer. So, there, no more holding back. He's fully like, I can't save this place. I'm gonna freaking rule it. You know, like, I love that. Full descent into madness, into the villainhood. So, Kingpin's great, is what I'm getting at. He still doesn't wear his white suit yet. He wears mainly black, and then when Vanessa comes into his life, he starts wearing gray, which I like that nice little detail there. Also the detail that Vanessa always wears white, and he's always wearing black, and then when she comes into his life, he starts to wear gray. I like it. Really nice. Foggy. Now we can talk more about Foggy. Foggy's great. I love him. So, this version of Foggy, again, might be better than the comic version. In the comic version, especially with this is adapting. This is heavily based on like the Frank Miller run of Daredevil, and in that run, Foggy is very much like a doofus, right? Like he's comic relief, he's the Joker. Matt is the brains behind Nelson and Murdoch. But in this one, they don't just make Foggy comic relief. He's actually a competent lawyer in his own right. On the same level as Matt, maybe not on the same level as Matt, but definitely like near Matt's level. Like Foggy can hold his own in a court case. He's funny, actually makes funny jokes, funny quips that don't feel like the stupid MCU humor where it's like, you know, a big event happens, they're like, well, that just happened. I can't believe, did you see that thing happen? Wow, thing happened. No, the stuff he says is like something an actual person would say that's funny. Right? Like when he's talking to Matt on the phone in the first episode, and, you know, he's making fun of the fact that Matt always gets the girls, and he's like, we have to go talk to the real estate agent. By the way, I heard she hates blind people. Thinks they were sent by the devil. And Matt's like, that's a horrible thing to say, Foggy. And Foggy's like, I know, in this day and age. Like, it's great. I love Foggy. He's so good. Such a good character. And he doesn't just stay, you know, like Matt Murdock's somewhat funny best friend who's always supporting him. He freaking cares about Matt, dude, right? Like, he genuinely cares about Matt Murdock. Like, before he finds out Matt is Daredevil, when he sees Matt coming with cuts and bruises, like, he's genuinely like, what the hell? Dude, you okay? And he's always checking on Matt in his house and all that type of stuff. Like, he's a really good friend. He even went with Matt. He left a cozy job at a law firm to start Nelson and Murdoch with Matt. So that doesn't say the type of person Foggy is. I don't know who does. And Foggy has like the great line where he's always like, I could have been a butcher. My mom wanted me to be a butcher, and I could have been a butcher. Had my own apron, free meats, all that. My own little shop. I like that. And then we get the episode where we find out their origin, like, because again, you don't just see their origin from the beginning. From the start, you just know they're friends, and then later on we find out their origin, where they were college roommates. You get a nice scene where the two of them are just talking while, like, they were out drunk one night and they just started talking. It's a really good scene and shows you their great friendship. And then when Foggy finds out Matt is Daredevil, it's like you understand why Foggy's hurting, right? How Foggy realizes, I've been lied to all these years. You could see, and you're going around beating up people. You are the vigilante that we hear about on the news all the time. It is great. And even through all that, even though he's pissed at Matt for doing it, even though he feels betrayed, he doesn't know if he even wants to continue being part of Nelson and Murdoch. He still keeps Matt's secret from Karen, and he still is willing to take down Wilson Fisk. So much so that he goes to, you know, his ex-girlfriend, who they're having an on and off, you know, booty call thing, still goes to her with information on Wilson Fisk to try and take him down. And like, especially when it gets to the part where they meet like the nice old Mexican lady and like they want to tear down that lady's apartment, and all that type of stuff. And Foggy, like the way he comforts that old lady to like, don't give up, we're gonna get this done. And then like, it's so good. Foggy's such a good character. Karen, we're moving on to Karen Page. Karen is all right. She's not actually a Karen in the, the internet sense, which is great. I like how she's introduced in this, where she's like their first client who, after seeing what they do for her, wants to then work for them because she sees the type of people they are. I like that. That's a nice way to keep her, to introduce her and bring her into the fold. And then she really likes the dynamic between the two guys. You can see they do a good job of like showing Karen has, without saying it, right? Like you can see Karen's probably, maybe she's got a thing for Matt. He's a pretty handsome guy, all that type of stuff. But they do a good job of also having her maybe have a thing with Foggy, because those two are paired a lot together. And there's great chemistry between the two. Really great chemistry between the two. But then it's also like, yeah, Karen kind of likes Matt more than Foggy, maybe. I think she's kind of friend-zoned Foggy. Poor Foggy. Give the guy a chance. Well, he does have a chance with Marcy. That's his wife in the comics. So, that's the bad thing also about being a comic fan. I go back into this with more comic knowledge than I did before, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's his wife. Or it's like, I know the fate of Karen in the comics, what becomes of Karen Page, so I'm just waiting for that. I know it doesn't happen in this show at all, and looks like it's not there at the beginning of Born Again. But who knows, maybe if Daredevil Born Again gets a season 2, we might actually have the real fate of Karen Page eventually. But Karen is fine. She might get a bit annoying at times, especially when she gets like really into the pursuit of taking down Wilson Fisk, that she kind of becomes insensitive to other people's problems. But I see that more as like a character flaw, showing you that she's not perfect. She's not a perfect person. She is going to make mistakes. And she's going to make stupid decisions and be dumb at times. So I don't necessarily see that as like I was super annoyed with her. I more or less saw that as like, yeah, no, this is part of showing that she's not perfect, right? We have Ben Urich, who I think personally, this is how you do a Ben Urich, let me get this out of the way. Ben Urich is a reporter, known reporter. Ben Urich, he's taken down mob bosses, he's exposed corruption before, he's a renowned reporter, and now he is eventually brought into this fold of taking down Wilson Fisk and exposing him for the actual crime boss he actually is, and all that type of stuff. And Ben takes some convincing, because at first he's not really into it, but he's kind of being like not sidelined in his job as a reporter, but he's not getting the opportunity to actually report on anything that he feels is newsworthy. He's just getting like stuff like, oh, there's a new subway station being built, right? Like stuff like that. He's like, he yearns to get an actual real story out there. And now one has fallen into his lap, and he doesn't know if he should actually do it or not, because Ben has other problems to take care of, right? Like his wife has, it looks like, a bit of dementia, and he's trying to get care for her, and he's, all that. So he needs to prioritize, his wife is his main priority, and he tells Karen that, when he eventually gets, the opportunity to maybe get a promotion in his job from being a reporter to an editor, he starts to contemplate taking it because it's better money and more opportunity for him to care for his wife. So he like gives Karen all the info he has, and he starts telling her like, my wife, she comes first. She's, this is important, but it's not the most important thing to me. I like that, right? And then his wife snaps him out of it and goes, no, this is not you. You're a reporter. It's not just a job. That's who you are. So go do it. Go report. Which sadly leads to Ben's death, which I don't think anyone saw coming, especially not as comic fans, because Ben Urich does not die. Ben Urich is a prominent character, especially in Daredevil comics. Shows up in Spider-Man every now and then too, because he's, you know, New York, Spider-Man and Daredevil crossover a lot. And Ben Urich has worked for he's working for the New York Bulletin in the show, which he does work for in the comics, but he also worked mainly for the Daily Bugle as well. So, and that's his crossover. So his death, I think, came off as like a bit of a shock to most people. Like, oh my god, you killed Ben Urich? Wow, okay. Because I was shocked at that, because I'm like, not over the fact that he was killed by Kingpin. I think that kind of... That's not the shock bit. I think I'm more the fact that even he died, right? But I'm like, Ben had more to give, right? Like, there was a lot more that this character of Ben Urich could have done. So the fact he died, like, super quick as he did, I'm like, oh, okay. I feel like Ben could have done more in the show overall, like, especially in like season 2 and 3. Ben Urich could have been more like comic book Ben Urich, which you see a bit of that in his brief like 2 encounters he has with Daredevil, not as Matt Murdock, but like as Daredevil, where the two talk, because in the comics Ben Urich knows Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and the two chat, and Ben Urich becomes like, you know, like that reporter who helps Matt get info, and then in return Matt tells him stuff that Ben Urich can, you know, dive in on, right? So I was like, oh, that's probably what we're gonna do, right? And then that doesn't happen. It's like, oh, it's weird. I feel like Ben had a lot more to give as a character. But then again, they probably wrote this as like, we don't know if we're getting a season 2, so just write where we write, you know? Speaking of characters and more to give, James Wesley. Oh my god. At first, I didn't like him at first, because he comes off and he gives that aura of like, oh, he's going to be that slimy henchman who, you know, acts big and tough and all that type of stuff. But then when he comes into Daredevil, he's going to be like, don't hurt me, you know, like that type of like henchman, right? No, man, Wesley's awesome. I love Wesley. He's not just a henchman. He is a friend. He is Wilson Fisk's best friend. The devotion that this man shows to Wilson Fisk is astounding, and we all need a friend like Wesley. Holy hell. Like, I love Wesley. I grew to really love Wesley throughout this show, because when Kingpin's preoccupied with something like maybe courting Vanessa and stuff like that, or dealing with his, you know, childhood trauma, Wesley mans up and he's like, all right, I gotta make some freaking moves here, make some business decisions. Wesley's mainly like, you know, Kingpin makes a decision and Wesley carries it out mainly, but Wesley makes some decisions of his own, right? And it goes to show the trust they have that Kingpin asks Wesley, what did you do there? And Wesley's like, oh, I did this and this, and Kingpin doesn't strangle him for it. He trusts Wesley to do it. I think the moment that really spoke to me about like Wesley and Wilson is, you know, definitely his final episode, episode 10, I think, where you see he's comforting Kingpin about Vanessa, right? Like he's being a good friend for him. And when he finds out about, you know, Karen and Ben going to visit Kingpin's mom, he's like, all right, he can't leave Vanessa's side. He's got enough to deal with. I'm a deal boot business right here, you know? And that sadly results in his death. Screw you, Karen, for killing Wesley. Because that's another character I feel like, oh my god, there could have been so much more for Wesley to do as Kingpin's right-hand man. And he's just shot and killed. And I'm like, that sucks. But I guess it also helps because now Kingpin can get a bit more hands-on on stuff and not just rely on making orders that Wesley carries out. Kingpin himself now has to carry out the orders. But it is a shame to see Wesley go because I liked his character. You know, like, and it's great to see Kingpin, like, when he sees Wesley dead, how he grieves. Like, he beats up one of his guards, and he's like, and he starts saying, like, you know, like, he was my friend, he's my friend. And, you know, he sits next to Wesley's dead body and, like, holds his hand, and he gives him a little kiss on the forehead. It's like a goodbye. It's like, aww. Aww. I feel sad for you now. And Wesley's death is probably also an indicator to Kingpin's descent to madness and to full villainhood, because now he's lost his best friend. He almost lost his girlfriend. He lost his best friend. His mother was targeted. Like, yeah. And bing, bang, boom, pow. That's the freaking three-hit combo there that sends Kingpin into a freaking full-on villain. But I love this. You know, like, especially also I love the part where he's talking with Karen and he tells Karen, I do not love this city. The poor, the weather, the, like, you know, like the layer of stench that you can't wash off. And he's like, but I'm needed here because Wilson Fisk loves this city. Right? So that's why he's there, for his boy. Love it. All right. Wrapping this up now. I've gushed enough about this. You know, I love how Matt Murdock gets his suit. I think that's great. The way he gets his suit. How Kingpin, his suit is like custom made to be like armor almost. So when Matt like goes to like slice him, he cuts through the suit, but he doesn't hit Kingpin. Like, I like that. And then once he finds that out, he then goes and finds the guy who made Kingpin's suit and tells him, you're gonna make a suit for me. Like that. That's a smart way for him to get his suit. And his suit looks fine. It looks better in later seasons, but for now, it's fine. It's cool. It's only there for like the last little bit, but you just feel so happy seeing him in it. You're like, oh my god, he looks like Daredevil. Oh my god, he's in the suit. And then he gets like, you know, the batons, and the baton, it's like become like the stick, the bow staff. It's so good. So good. The show feels like a show. It's structured like a show. It doesn't feel like a movie that they just cut up into a show, like most streaming shows do now. Right? Where it's clear this was meant to just be a movie that they just cut into a show. Right? Like, no. This was written like a show. This was written like a show, and this is formatted like a show, and I love it. I love it because you have the episodes that like really advance the plot, and you get the episodes that stop, take a breather. We're gonna focus on some characters for a bit. Here's a bit of backstory. Next episode we'll pick back up with the plot. But I love it because it's structured like a show, a well-written show. Speaking of well-written, props to Drew Goodart and Steven DeKnight. You guys made Peak awesome. It's a shame that they were season 1 and that they weren't there to really write episodes for season 2 and 3, and because this is perfect, right? Like, because you have an actual showrunner, right? This is what you need. You need someone who is running the show and is like overseeing everything. One person overseeing everything, and then delegates writers. Here's the episode you're gonna write. Here's your brief synopsis of what happens. Do that, and then they get the script and they go this, and they make the notes. That's what you need in a show. Not like the current Disney Plus model where it's just freaking, there's no showrunner. It's a freaking free-for-all. There's 50,000 writers here, 50,000 directors here. We don't know what we're doing. It's like, no, they knew what they're doing with this show. They knew what they wanted to, the story they wanted to tell with this show. So props to Drew Goodart and Steven DeKnight. Sadly, they were not brought back for Born Again, which is a shame. I think also, before I end this now, the fights, I have to talk about the fights. The fights are great. The fights are awesome. They feel like a comic book, right? Like, they feel like a fight scene from a comic book, but have still realism in them. Like Matt Murdock fighting Nobu. That's comic book as hell. Right? Like, that's awesome. His fight with Kingpin at the end, too, that's comic book as hell. I'm all for it. I'm all for the leaning into, like, how's he doing this? Who cares? Comics. I'm all for that. But there is the sense of realism, like the hallway scene. You see them get tired. You see Daredevil get tired, catch his breath. You see, like, some of his punches become sluggish as he gets tired during that scene. Like, it's comic booky with a sense of realism, but not too much to take me out of it. And of course, I have to talk about, they allude to MCU. The MCU allusions in this show. Because when this show first started, it was MCU canon, and then it was decanonized, and then it was recanonized, but it is canon to the MCU now, again. But when it was out, it's like, they allude to the Battle of New York, right? Like in the first episode, when Matt and Foggy are looking at what's going to be their office, and then talking with the real estate agent, she's like, you know, prices have gone down since the disaster, and he's like, oh, is that what we're calling it now? And you see like Ben Urich, one of the papers he wrote was on the Battle of New York, right? Like stuff like that is really, really good. I believe there's also like a Captain America reference in the show as well. So like stuff like that is like there to remind you we're in the MCU, but it's still a grounded story that like it didn't need to be in the MCU, but it's like a nice little way to tell you we're in the MCU and it's grounded, right? It's like, well, why isn't, you know, Shield looking into this? Well, this isn't big enough for Shield to look into, right? And this is how you tell a good like self-contained story in a bigger universe. You ground it, you put it in this little bubble. So this event happens, but it's not big enough for the head honchos up there to notice, but this happens, right? So it adds to your lore. That's really good. I can talk for a lot more, but this is already as long as it is. So overall, Daredevil, it's a perfect season of television. I give it a 9 out of 10. There is nitpicks I have with the show. Oh, I forgot to mention Claire. Claire's introduced in the show. Claire Temple. She's an amalgamation. They kind of make her Night Nurse, I believe, is the comic book character. They just decided that instead of introducing Night Nurse, they just make Claire Night Nurse instead, which is fine. Night Nurse is a comic book hero. She just patches. She's like, you know, she's the superhero nurse essentially. And Claire becomes the link between all the Daredevil shows because she shows up in Jessica Jones, then Luke Cage. She starts dating Luke Cage per the comics. She shows up in Iron Fist, Defenders. Yeah. She becomes like that linchpin, the linking thing to show you that they're all connected. And then in every show she references, you know, like she references her other appearances. And then she's kind of the reason in Defenders they all get together, really, right? She's like, you guys have to work together. You're all my friends, you know? Yeah, Claire's good. I think Claire is fine. She kind of disappears near the end of the show. Like during those last couple episodes when stuff starts heating up, Claire's not really there, and that's fine. She's not really needed. But for what she's there for, I think she's fine. She's good. She's good. I like Claire. So, 9 out of 10 show. It's not 10 out of 10 perfect, but it's damn close, man. It's really damn close. It is really close. I also like how each episode's about an hour, you know? But they don't feel super long, right? It's a nice spot, 45 minutes an hour. That's good for this type of show. So there we go, Daredevil season 1, 9 out of 10 show. I like it, really, really love it. Surprise! I've been gushing about it for almost 40 minutes. It's fantastic. It's so fun. Now I'm so glad I decided to do this rewatch. Basically rewatching it for the first time again, because I remember practically nothing about it when I watched it the first time. Because like I said, I wasn't really into it the first time. Now I'm like loving this. So love it. I'm just getting more and more hyped for Born Again, man. This is dangerous territory because if Born Again sucks, Born Again is gonna be like the first Marvel show I really watch. Right? Like the first Marvel Disney Plus show I watch, bar like X-Men 97. That like I'm actually excited about, right? Because obviously, like any other time I watch a Marvel show on Disney Plus, I'm like, oh my god, this show sucks, and I'm out in like episode 2. So this is like the first one I'm excited about. It looks good, and I'm getting dangerous, man. I'm getting dangerous. I'm rewatching the Daredevil show now. I'm rereading some of my comics to get hyped for this. I think what I'm probably going to do as well is I'm probably going to read the Muse storyline in the comics as well to see how well they adapted for the show. So yeah, I'm getting like that Daredevil hype mode, man, and it's like this is dangerous. Anyway, 9 out of 10 show. It's fantastic. Go watch Daredevil. That's all I got for you all. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble for 40 minutes about a blind man beating people up, and I will see you all next time.